What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by Bizarre of D12. Basically, this album is called Hannicap Circus, and it came out in the summer of 2005. This record came out on the heels of D12's D12 World from 2004, and Eminem had a pretty large 2004 with also dropping Encore that year. But this is like the next follow-up where if you like the world of Eminem and D12 and some of that type of stuff, this is definitely a good one to look up. Now, the thing about this album, it's a decent album, but I do feel like Bizarre's later albums are actually better. I mean, this has some degree of like Eminem Hellmane, but it really, I mean, it has a beat from Eminem, a D12 song on there minus Eminem, and then like a verse from Eminem on there, but it doesn't have an abundance of like super quality compared to albums like Blue Cheese and Coney Island and Friday Night at St. Andrews and like some of his other albums like that. Like Rufus is probably the better album too. So I feel like there definitely needed to be King Gordy on here. King Gordy is at least on the chorus on one of these songs, and it does have more prolific kind of guests on here. Like Big Boy of Outkast is on here. Devin the Dude is on here. King Gordy drops a chorus. Obi Trice is on here. All of D12 is on here in some fashion. So there are some folks on here. Dion, the hook singer, is on here. He does some stuff. There are some pretty good R&B cats like Raphael Sadiq or something like that. Those type folks. There's just some good beats. Mr. Porter drops a couple beats like he does on D12 albums. But I kind of look after it like despite the fact that this is probably one of the bigger budget kind of Bizarre albums, I feel like it just the quality behind it, Bizarre is just kind of meant to be more underground and kind of more horrorcore sounding, and it kind of comes off as like a campier Eminem. But the thing about it is Bizarre's kind of abstract style of his lyrics and stuff. Combination of that, I mean, you get these songs that are abstract, but you kind of get them in fashions where they're just not presentable and kind of more kind of affable and that sort of tune. Like he mastered this a lot better on Blue Cheese and Coney Island and some of his later albums. But this particular album, it just felt like the things he were saying just didn't convey properly because the beats and like the songs that they were fit for just didn't really work. Then you combine that with like a lot of personal songs and less songs that kind of have for more of a good time. I mean, Bizarre is a big smoker, and that's definitely a good quality about this album. So you get some good Swisher and Backwood type songs as far as that kind of goes. But the concept behind it is it's just not very like compatible with the nightlife. Like for some reason, it's strange. I mean, minus the song Rockstar, there's not an overabundance of songs really for stepping out. I feel like later albums by Bizarre and later mixtapes and projects by Bizarre, like the last American Rockstar stuff and some of that type of stuff, just had a lot more kind of social affability. But this one, this was trying to kind of be like a, I don't want to say wholesome, but pretty close to wholesome. Just kind of a complete album that has like probably more warming cuts than it probably needed. I feel like that's kind of the concept about it. It just has some stuff on here, but it needed more songs like Rockstar. But we'll go ahead and talk about this album just to kind of get into it because I do like Bizarre. I would say I like Bizarre's personality. He does have a lot of charisma. He's one of the more compelling rappers of today's times and that type of stuff. But I just look after it. The packaging of how this album kind of turned out was just not the emphasis that it needed to be because it just felt like it kind of had like uh kind of like contrasting kind of styles that just kind of put him in a context that just didn't really work as far as that kind of went. Like his energy, it just kind of felt like a gorilla on a leash or something like that, where it just doesn't really make sense to kind of have that be more formal and punctual and normalized. Just getting him in a more punctual sense is just not the context that Bizarre needs to be in. So it just made sense. I definitely, I mean, this has some good songs on here. Like this is the only real album by Bizarre apart from his EP that has Eminem on here and like folks like later albums. I mean, later albums did have folks like Tech Nine and more King Gordy and some of that type of stuff, but and even Twisted was on some of those. But this kind of, despite the budget and the kind of more high profile producers, just wound up being one of the worst produced and kind of less presentable and just kind of more quality Bizarre albums. So we'll kind of get to that and you'll see what I'm talking about. But there was one single off this album and that was Rockstar, and that's produced by Eminem. And Rockstar is basically a campy kind of crunk single, and it's similar to Eminem's joking lead singles. Like when you think of a song like Without Me or The Real Slim Shady or Just Lose It or some of those type ones, it's in the same fashion as that. Bizarre kind of did that same type of style that Eminem does, and its offhanded appeal is kind of dope. I like this song just because it's kind of like a campier version. Like if you like Eminem, this is kind of like the more kind of offhanded and I don't want to say second rate, but just kind of more somehow secondary kind of posture that Eminem kind of has. It's just something that I would recommend to folks that have gone and burnt out Eminem and just are looking for something like him, but not quite him. That's kind of the thing. Just an offhanded kind of song, but it does have its appeal. And that's definitely a good one. It's just a nice kind of catchy song. It's probably the most prolific song on here. It's a complete shame that there were not more songs like it, because this has some of the best energy on the album. It's one of the album's best songs. It just has very infectious and kind of has a very infectious and kind of affable kind of energy about it, but it just doesn't have really any clones. This is kind of like one of a kind on this album, at least, just because it just doesn't have like the correct kind of other songs that can have that same sort of style. But there are some smoking songs on here, so I would say there's a bunch of songs on here, but unfortunately they're not ones that I wholesomely recommend. But I'll go ahead and talk about it. So there, out of 16, there's 20 songs on here minus 4 skits. There's 20 songs on here minus 3 skits and an intro. That narrows it down to 16 songs. And out of those 16 songs, I wound up recommending to you 6 plus 1 almost songs. Those 6 songs would be Rockstar, Hip Hop, Gospel Weed Song, Ghetto Music, I'm So Cool, and Bad Day. And then the almost song was Let the Record Skip. So to talk about Let the Record Skip, this is a decent beat. Kind of reminds me of like a more campy and funnier version of something Wu-Tang would do, or some East Coast artist like Mobb Deep or something. But it's kind of it has kind of awkward lyrics, and it's almost kind of stupid funny, but it's just not got a very good interface, I would say, and it has pretty decent beat. But this is kind of the concept about it. I think the main quality about this song is just the fact that it's just not very affable in terms of its presentation. I feel like Bizarre was really trying to be like a dumbass on this particular song, and the catchiness of it, where I feel like if you're smoking a bunch and you find this if you find this assuredly stupid, kind of funny in that sort of sense, it works as far as that kind of goes. But none of these lyrics have any sort of conveyance of trying to be something that has like a more kind of slicker factor about it. This is just kind of, in a sense, kind of idiotic lyrics that kind of go along with some of this. Just lyrics that completely don't make sense as far as that kind of goes. It's not a very good interface, but I suppose in that context, if you're smoke heavy or just want something that doesn't quite take itself as serious, this is something for you as far as that kind of goes. But it's an almost song. One of the best songs on this album, though, is Gospel Weed Song. This is probably the most popular song according to Spotify. A lot of folks seem to like this song. This is a drowsy, kind of heavy smoking song with an emphatic chorus. The chorus is really excellent, despite the fact that it's kind of gospel tinged, but it's pretty emphatic, and it really works as like a powerful smoke song. It's a nice, lazy, kind of regular warm day, I would say. Just a nice kind of June simmering afternoon, something like that. No clouds in the sky, something like that. Just heat wave kind of day. It's a good one to smoke several blunts and just feel good. And it's kind of the energy that this is just kind of so optimistic and kind of like, excited in a sense. It's just very kind of, I mean, it's a lazy song, but this is kind of upbeat in a lot of senses. It's just a good, strong song for just having some summer fun and just really smoking and that type of stuff. Just an excellent one. Just the energy is very affable. So that's kind of the thing. Great smoking song to kind of have. And just, that's a stock one when you pour out like the Cypress Hill and Afro Man songs and E40 songs and some of that. This is a good one to kind of have for some smoking tunes. So Hip Hop has Eminem on there. It's kind of a basic title, but Hip Hop has Eminem on there. This is basically a story song with like a glaring beat. It has a glaring beat with some dripping charisma. Eminem completely tears apart this song. He just rides the beat extremely well. This is the classic kind of vintage Eminem. Despite the fact that this is kind of encore era Eminem, it doesn't really feel that way in terms of the lyrics. He wasn't being goofy or comical or drugged out or something like that. He just standard Eminem verse where he tears apart the song just like old times. It's a nice bop-ish kind of story song at that. So both Bizarre and Eminem do tear apart the song. Bizarre tears apart the song pretty good too. He just kind of takes it more easy and tells a story. And he just takes it more easy and tells a story in a sense. That's kind of the concept as far as that kind of goes. I do like this concept of just kind of getting some of these. Eminem talks about like his gun case and that type of stuff when he got probation and stuff. This is kind of the concept as far as that kind of goes. So, but there are some kind of lazy summer day songs on here. There's 3 of them apart from Gospel Weed Song. So those would be Ghetto Music, I'm So Cool, and Bad Day. And Bad Day in particular is like a funny rewrite of Ice Cube's Today Was a Good Day. It's just a funnier one. You can tell the concept that it's not a good day, it's a bad day, where Bizarre just talks about the standard concept of the rewrite of Ice Cube's song just in a more kind of piss poor kind of day as far as that kind of goes. It's got some nice mellow vibes, and it's a feel good song despite the lyrics not being so affable. I just would have to say it's just really talking about having a really bad day and that type of stuff. But it's funny. I mean, this is another one that's pretty funny. Like Let the Record Skip is decently funny. Bad Day is pretty funny. It's just the concept. It's a clever concept to get this song all these years later to be able to say that that's just if you are not feeling like Ice Cube and just having a real good day, it's kind of more affable. I mean, that song actually had me chuckling, so it's a pretty good one to be able to say that Bizarre really did a good job with this particular song. It's just a nice one. I'm So Cool is like a simmering heat wave kind of day. Just really feels like blue skies. Just a nice kick back and smoke a few gem. I would say it's melodic and candid. This is another one where Bizarre's kind of sing-songy, kind of like gospel weed song, but this one's just a little bit more basic and not quite as sheerly smoke heavy, but definitely one where you can smoke to and just have like a good lazy kind of day. It's just kind of a good concept for some of these. It's just good kind of getting some of these summary tunes from Bizarre because they work pretty damn well. This is definitely an edge that D12 or Eminem doesn't really do that much. So it's just interesting that Bizarre had so many lazy day kind of songs just for relaxing and kind of R&R type stuff. And these are definitely good smoking songs. Ghetto Music is another lazy, simmering summer heat kind of song. It's definitely a smoke a few bop, I would say. It's just a real good song that kind of has some swishers backwoods rolled, that type of stuff. It's a regular and kind of good times jam, I would say, and it's definitely a song with a nice groove about it. This is just one, like really, really, I would have to say, if you're just looking for a summer loud pack that's from like the 2000s and has some decent bops on there, especially in like a just kind of picnic and grubbing type sense, just summer cookout, some of that, and just smoke heavy days, just simmering summer days and ladies jams and that type of stuff. I would say that this album's kind of decent. It's not packed to the gills, but it has enough bops on here to kind of fill out a decent mixtape with some good Bizarre tunes. That's pretty good concept. Just some good summery kind of music. That's really in that sense. It's really kind of a hot day kind of song. That's kind of the concept about the album. There's not an overabundance of songs I really enjoyed on here. Like some of these, like I kind of would have wished I would have liked Doctor better. It's kind of a waste of an Obi Trice and Dion feature. Like Dion did like a hook on the Games album, and he's done hooks for other folks. He's kind of around to kind of get some of those hooks, but I just didn't really like the production on Doctor. It's another one that's kind of similar to Eminem's Drips off the Eminem show, where Obi Trice is on a song just like that, also where it talks about like dealing with some sleazy women and catching diseases and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. But I just really, I mean, at least with Drips, the beat was better and that was just catchier song. But this one is just kind of like a more kind of just awkward kind of sounding production that just kind of feels more of like an erratic time that just is not quite as compelling to listen to. And, songs like One Chance was a dramatic type song about getting money, but I felt like Get This Money off of Blue Cheese and Coney Island was just a little bit more convincing. That was the better version. This one just kind of had like a dramatic East Coast beat, and it's decent, but it's not quite enough to recommend. I just kind of feel like I just question how many times I would listen to it in the sense of hearing it. I mean, the energy, while relatable, it just does not really have that motivational spark. And like Coming Home was another summer retread of like, this one's just more kind of for your children and that type stuff, I would say, but just didn't quite, I mean, not having that sort of sense and that sort of daddy's coming home type feeling. If you don't have that same context about you, it just doesn't have as much of a powerful energy. It's really kind of heartfelt and emotional kind of song, but the energy behind it it doesn't have quite as much compelling context if you're not in that specific mood. So that one's just kind of a more emotive kind of song. It's strong enough. I would almost recommend that song, but it just didn't quite add up. I didn't really like the Nothing at All song by D12 on there. Doesn't have Eminem on there, but this one just was too gnarled and didn't really have compelling enough production. I kind of felt like I was expecting the D12 song to be a little bit better, but it just didn't quite nail it as well. Like some of these other ones on here, like Crush on You and Porno Bitches and I'm in Love with You and like Fuck Your Life and some of those type ones. Just some of these ones just kind of had like less attractive kind of productions that just didn't quite catch as well. I mean, I would have thought that I would have liked Porno Bitches just because it has Devin the Dude and Big Boy on there, but it was just a really kind of clumsy beat and it just didn't really convey the topic of Porno Bitches that well. It just was not that affable in terms of what needed to happen. And some of these other ones, I'm in Love with You, Fuck Your Life, some of those type ones. I would say I Need a Friend, I'm in Love with You, Fuck Your Life, or just some ones that just kind of felt like clumsy beats and just approaches that just didn't have the chemistry for something. There's just more blunders on here than what really needed to be. And I kind of look after that concept. Like for a debut album, it's pretty solid. And Bizarre does have some hits on here, but I look at the concept that in terms of album cuts, like it just depends upon the angles as to how you look after it. I definitely think songs like Rockstar and Gospel Weed Song were some definitely kind of strong segments from Bizarre, but it needed more of those moments. Like he nailed, and he had multiple kind of summer tunes on here. Like I even feel like you could even add Coming Home to some of those songs in addition to like I'm So Cool, Ghetto Music, and Bad Day. But I just kind of feel like it just depends upon the tone as to how you want some of these. But there's just a lack of kind of affable kind of weekend tunes on here that really make this and the energy of this album kind of be more electric. I feel like there's just a lot of kind of lazy and just awkward things about this project that just kind of make it be more of like the thing about this album is the energy on this album is just not siphoned correctly. I feel like when you have moments like Gospel Weed Song and Rockstar and Ghetto Music and Bad Day and some of those moments, like Bizarre is pretty funny, but he's just not wielded properly. It's just, I feel like the way this album was kind of melded together just was not a good format for showcasing his strengths. Like I think Horrorcore Bizarre, Smoking Bizarre, Summer Bizarre, Party Bizarre, some of those type moments are kind of on there, but there's just not an overabundance. I even feel like some of these awkward kind of lady songs that kind of happen, like Porno Bitches, or some of those type ones, other ones that are like that. Doctor Doctor in some cases could have had like differential tones, but it just kind of, you just don't see that concept. Like Bizarre got better down the road, and it's kind of actually interesting that his major label debut, where he had the budget and he had folks like Big Boy and Eminem, King Gordy, Obi Trice, High Tech, some of those producers, Mr. Porter, some of them, it just turned out to not actually be the more affable project from Bizarre. That's just kind of thing. I would definitely hand over fist recommend Blue Cheese and Coney Island over this album. And I don't remember Friday Night at St. Andrews as much, but I'd probably recommend that one over this one too, despite the fact that you're not going to find Eminem and or higher up artists kind of on those albums. But I still think those albums are better. So it's this kind of thing. So me liking basically 6.5 songs out of 16, which is really me liking 6.5 songs out of 16, which is really not that many. I'm gonna give this album like a 4.25 out of 10. I mean, that's really not. I mean, I would have to say that like 6 out of 16 is less than half. 8 out of 16 would be half, which would be a 5 out of 10. But it's really a 4.25 is really kind of pushing it. It should almost. I mean, it's not to say that this is a horrible album. I mean, it has some gems on here. It's worth the purchase for a decent amount of money. Paying $7, $6, $8 for it is not too bad, but it just does not. It's nowhere near a classic album. It's not wholesomely commendable. I mean, Bizarre got better. Like I said, Bizarre got better later, so I wouldn't just try this album out because it has the Eminem song on there and think that the rest of his projects are crap just because he probably has worse budget and became less of a big star. Because that's just not the case. His mixtapes are better. His later albums, his underground albums are better. He has songs with folks like Tech Nine and King Gordy, folks like that. Twisted are on there, some of those type moments. Yellow Wolf, some of those type people. So there's just some later folks that just translate better to the more underground Bizarre as far as that kind of goes. That's definitely a thing. The social score, though, I'll go ahead and give like a 5.75 to, because I feel like there's enough of these gems on there. There are some decent summer moments and just kind of summer malaise as far as that kind of goes. Just some warm smoke sessions just for lazy days and regular days, but it's just not very lively kind of energy. If you're really looking for more songs like Rockstar, there really is nothing else like it on here. So it's just kind of a one and done kind of song. But I look after it, just being able to say, is this a decent affair? 5.75 out of 10. In terms of the future, like Bizarre is pretty prolific with his output, so there is some more stuff I'm going to review and such, and I'm going to get to some more of these. And I do have some more coming pretty soon down the pipeline, so just stick around for that. But I mean, this is kind of a lukewarm kind of album. That does not mean I just would look after it. I would still try out this project, but just understand that he has better stuff out there.